Forever. 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 Forever.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to Legends Never Die, where neither will you if you know Jesus. There's been some questions come up in the YouTube community lately that I want to address. Here's the first one.
The crappiest question to another question. Is set collecting dying? I've heard a lot of talk over the last couple of weeks about how people have only been into chases, and they've only been into the chase for the big names, and nobody cares about building sets, and nobody ever really did.
No, I don't think that set collecting is dead. However, I do think set collecting is dying. This is why. I think that set collecting has become increasingly more cost prohibitive, especially if you don't want to do it in low grade and binders like me. If you want mid or high grade or graded cards to do a whole set, it is really, really tough financially for a lot of collectors. The other reason is I think that set collecting has taken like a left turn, especially within our community. I think a lot of people collect sets, just not in the traditional sense. Different guys that do just like the Hall of Fame run for sets, or they create their totally own set checklist, like a John, 3D 80s Kid.
Hello friends, I am John and I am the 3D 80s Kid.
Who has chosen some different Hall of Fame cards as representatives in his collection from different ones, but kind of handpicked. He's not doing them all. He's not doing complete sets in the traditional sense. I also sell to collect and have for about the last 5 years. And in those last 5 years, to have all the sales that I've had of a lot of commons and different things, there hasn't been a single time that I've sold big lots of commons to anyone that is younger than me. And I'm 34 years old. I'm still probably on the younger end of the spectrum in terms of set collectors. And when I say set collectors or set builders, I mean guys that don't just do like one set.
What's good, YouTube? Dom, Steven Sports Cards here, back with another video. Hope you're all doing well.
I think to consider yourself a set builder or a set collector, like that's a big part of what makes you as a collector. You have to collect more than one.
Jake, what's your feeling about this particular set, and why is it that you decided to collect this particular set? Although I know you're collecting a lot of sets.
Yeah, I'm only doing like 50 sets at the same time, so there wasn't like a specific reason why. I think a lot of people build maybe one vintage set just as to say they did it or as a component, but for it to be a main pillar, if you will, I think it's got to be more than one. Now, here's the second thing that I want to address that has come up in the community. I kind of agree with Sammy a little bit here. I think it is hard to break into the vintage collecting community. I mean, Mike Baseball Collector has put a lot of money into his security system at both of his homes. It's very difficult to get past it, the good Lord, and a gun.
I think the expectations are maybe a little bit out of whack.
So it's been difficult in that way. If the vintage card community was only guarded by Chris from Missouri,
slow down maybe,
and John Wade Boggs fan.
Hey sports card fans, it's John Wade Boggs fan. Hope you're all doing well.
And who's even shorter than me, it'd be easy to break into. But that's just not the case. In Lou Rock's line of work, as tall as George Diamond Yard is, as big as Don Field of Dreams is.
Think shorter.
I have no idea. You sure it's not Scott Reindeer Studios? I mean, he deserves to be a misfit.
Nope, not Scott. It's actually Jake.
Oh, that one?
It's tough to break into the vintage cardboard community here on YouTube. Not everyone is James Elite Hunters. You can't just push them around and dunk on them. So I've decided to get some training from John Mangini and be sharpening my skills both with the nunchucks and my vintage card knowledge to try and break into the vintage card community. It's gonna be hard. It's gonna be a long road, but I can't give up. And finally, I will not quit YouTube if this video doesn't get more than a couple hundred views. I also will not quit YouTube if my sub count doesn't go up after this video. It could go down, but hey, there's no crying in baseball or in card collecting. So if you stuck around with me this long, I'm going to show you that set building is not dead, because I still collect sets. I'm going to show you some cards, because that's what this is all about, right? Doing what we love to do, showing off our collections and documenting things for us, man. Like, it's been great making friends here on YouTube, connecting with people, but I'm not going to do this if people don't like my video. I'm not going to do this if I don't have 5,000 subscribers. It's okay, man. Like, at the end of the day, I'm doing it for myself, number one, and for number two, the people who enjoy it along with me. You know, it's about perspective. It's about perception. And often your perception is reality. You've heard that before, right? But your perception is based on your perspective. And I choose to look at YouTube and this card collecting community through a lens where I can have fun, crack jokes. They say that imitation is the most sincerest form of flattery. Share my collection and make friends, man. Like, I'm not looking at it to be a Debbie Downer or feel disappointed. You know, you got to choose to look at the positives, and that's what I choose to look at. I also choose to look at some baseball cards. That money's paying off after all, John. So if you're still with me in reverse chronological order, I'm gonna look at some cards. 1957 Topps are up first. These three cards get me to 311 different cards of the 420 to 74%. And they are three mid numbers. Wes Westrum, which is, I think, actually a really cool card with the old catcher's gear there. You've got a Gino Samoli, a tougher mid number because he's a Brooklyn Dodger, which is also true for the Westrum with being a Giants. And then the Wes Covington rookie card. I actually have this vintage card autographed for my representation of Covington for the 57 World Series Braves. Fun fact about him, he's actually a fairly difficult autograph to get, kind of expensive. Next up, these 1954 Bowmans put me at 116 of the 225 cards in the set. That's 51.56%. Nothing too crazy here. I'm just gonna kind of lay these out as I go. The 54 Bowmans are often overlooked. It does have a card in there like this with a giant catcher's mitt, which looks cool. But I was gonna say, it does have a card referred to as the Rarity, which is the Ted Williams. It was actually a dispute over having Ted in the set that led to his card being ran in the original print and then pulled, creating it to be somewhat short printed. It's not as rare as it used to be thought it was, you know, pre-internet, but nonetheless a valuable Ted Williams card. He was replaced by Jimmy Pearsall on the set. If I remember right, that is card number 66. And these cards are bigger than a standard size. If you put them in a binder, they will not fit in 9-pocket pages. They are too tall. You have to put them in 8-pocket pages, as there's a Beal Pierce star card, probably the biggest name in these 54 Bowmans here. You have to put them in 8-pocket pages, and if you were to put them, you know, you'd have to have either a vintage top loader, vintage size top loader, or a Card Saver 1 for those bad boys. Next up is this lone 1953 Topps. It's a Ray Boone. For some reason, this has been a difficult common for me to get, but it puts me at 188 different 1953 Topps out of the 274 that are in the set. That is 68.6%. Just 86 cards to go to complete 1953 Topps. And I do have the Mantle, I do have the Maze, I do have the Satchel Paige. So that one realistically could be completed somewhat soon. Then I have 6 cards from 1950 Bowman. I now have 178 of the 252 cards. That's 70.6% complete on the set. Just 74 cards to go. These are smaller square cards if you're unfamiliar with them. Some are horizontal, like this Buddy Kerr of my Boston Braves. Some are vertical, like this Red Sox card. Some are, you know, outside dugouts like this. This is a Hoot Evers. I think that's a pretty cool card. And in a lot of them you can see, you know, kind of a stadium look in the background. These are like the 51s and the 52s, where a lot of people consider them mini works of art. I love this 50 set. It probably has my favorite Jackie Robinson card period is in this set, which I do have one. So it's not a super tough set to complete. It doesn't have a Mantle, so that helps before Mantle started. And that's probably the biggest card of today's ads of the 50 Bowmans. That's a Jim Hegan, who was a star in his day with Cleveland. And then finally, I have 2 1949 Bowman cards that put me at 153 of the 240 cards for the set. That's 63.8%. Just 87 cards on this one, you know, under 100 on another set. Nice Philly there, and then a Gene Hermansky Dodgers card to round it out. So like I said, set collecting isn't dead. You know, myself and definitely many other collectors are still building sets, but I do believe it is dying for the reasons that I mentioned. Nonetheless, I don't care. I'm going to keep collecting the way that I want to collect, and a big part of that is building vintage sets. So thanks for hanging out with me. Thanks for listening to my thoughts. Appreciate you guys sticking around with me. Until next time, guys, keep collecting, and God bless.